spokesperson.
Okay.
This way it accommodates Lindiwe.
Yeah, no, I see that here. And the other one, you're still the DA caucus leader.
Yeah, I still have a role here in Johannesburg in terms of leading the team here, and still maintain both roles, at least for the foreseeable future.
So the new position, I mean, I know why, I know there's a vacancy, or there was a vacancy. How did it come up that you were, headhunted? Within the DA?
Well, I think there are structures and processes, and one of the things is when Lindiwe vacated her position, it kind of became obvious that there'd be a hole that we need to fill, and through the leadership, they kind of were in consultation with a number of people looking at who best fits the profile and who, as Helen would put it, would reflect the future of what the DA looks like. And then at that point, we started engaging in a conversation to say, how would it work? Also, how do we ensure that our objectives for 2014 are central to the conversation of national spokesperson, and what our dialogue we want to have with voters out there. And so they, through a whole lot of series of processes, it goes through a national team, and then federal executive ratify the decision, or at least interrogate it more. And I was privileged enough to be invited to take on the job,
So you don't, so is it an appointment or an election?
It's an appointed position, so it's less of an election. That's why there was a lot less drama.
Yeah, okay, and just sort of under the radar, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the prerogative of the leader at the time to be able to appoint their spokesperson, but it does go through its own rigorous process internally.
Did you have to consider the position yourself? I mean, how much of a consideration did it take for you?
Yeah, it did, because it asked me a number of questions, and one of the most important one was, well, what is my role in Johannesburg? And that's an important one. Equally so, what does it mean from a time point of view, my own commitment, also my own personal objectives, in terms of where we want to go as a party and where do I want to go personally. So there was a lot of consideration that I had to put into the at least the appointment. But I think, anyone at any given point who gets the opportunity to at least engage civil society, to at least aspire to make a sense of a difference, is privileged. It's not anyone's right. And so, to a large extent, you kind of respond to that invitation. I took the same view as I did for the mayoral candidacy. There's a famous quote from Winston Churchill that says, a man is figuratively tapped on the shoulder and asked to do something great, something fitted to his talents. And when that moment comes upon you, you kind of respond by a sense of
don't defer it.
Yeah. And so it's with great excitement, yet also the nervousness of the journey ahead and what it means for even me. And another consideration is always my family. I've got a daughter and a wife. So there's a consideration.
Well,
there.
Now that you're in politics, it didn't just happen today. You know you're stuck with it now, isn't it? Family, wife, whatever. But you're also married to politics.
Sure. And then once again, we just take it as we go and take it as in the journey.
There's certainly high praise for you from people within the DEA. In your opinion, what are the qualities that you bring to the fore?
I think there is the intervention of having grown up in Soweto that helps you connect with a story, the meta narrative of the South African story. It's one of the things I've passionately wanted to bring into the DA to say, well, let's understand the story of Sowetans. Let's understand it against the position of South Africa. So I bring that to the table. I think also just some academic strength and some understanding of the macro profile of where this country is going. So I think there is that. But I'm not here to propose at one level that there aren't people within the party with the same skill set, or sometimes it's just part of what happens in the timing of the season.
And your actual skill set, besides being a citizen of Soweto once and understanding other issues? What are the actual qualities you bring to the party?
Even now completing a second master's, which I'm about 2 months away from getting done. So this is part of the job. I lead. I've led a number of businesses and certainly have come in from a leadership training and development point of view. So that's been part of my work. I also have led a number of NGOs, some who do social development in communities, some who do HIV intervention work. And so just that managerial leadership type skill and also just the intellectual background that I come from at least has allowed me the space to be able to do.
So would you say it's correct that that the way to run political parties now is not for them to be political. They need to be run on business lines.
Yeah. I think that's a fair comment to make, because I think politics I think we must enter a season in South Africa where the project of nation building is foremost. And the process of building any country, any administration requires administratively gifted people. It requires people who understand systems. It requires that. So I think it's a great coincidence in this regard. But equally so, I do see the role of politics as still a necessary one going forward. So But I'm enjoying the fact that well within the DA we hold the view that let those who are fit for task, fit for purpose, come in on board and be able to shake up what needs to happen within the party to prepare us for tomorrow.
So you've got into the new position very much in holiday mode. The whole country's all quiet, unless something dramatic happens. It's going to be quiet for the next couple of weeks anyway. But come 2012, I mean, you've got this hard sell story to sell the DA to everybody else, to me and the listeners, and to convince amongst the still, as you know, many skeptics.
Sure. I mean, I think it's part of our strategic plan. I think one of it is to say we're a national party and we need national profile. So that is part of our strategic objectives. We've also looked at some very strong issues. I mean, one of the key issues in this country is the issue of redress, which is how do we do the transfer of opportunity and all of that. How do we make sure we do that? There are a number of the issue of reconciliation, the diversity of what we do. So those are key tenets, and messaging wise, it becomes important that across all 9 provinces we speak the same voice, we speak the same language. And then also, what are some of the issues that are coming up, at least in the media? And I think the DA is, even in this current mode, we're growing. I think there's a diversity of voter who's coming on board. There's 3 million young South Africans who will vote in 2014. So those will be part of my job to speak to them. You know?
And part of your job now would be the go-to person.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking to you lots more than you've ever spoken to anybody else in the past.
I look forward to it. It's been an interesting one. Despite it being quiet in this season, there's still some very big issues.
Would you enjoy that? I mean, being quizzed by the media and speaking on behalf of the DA, giving your story to the media very often? Yeah.
I am, as I say, I'm looking forward to the job to a large extent, and I enjoy the sort of dialogue. One of the things that sometimes gets me a bit nervous is that the conversations in South Africa tend to be personality driven, not issue driven. So someone often invariably phones me and asks me, what do I think of this person? And sometimes we lose the issue. And I think sometimes issues are central to this dialogue. And that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to, at least trying to force that agenda on the table.
And some may say the DA has spent lots of time sort of developing personality with Helen Zille and Lindiwe Mazibuko and, of course, yourself. Lots of things to talk about. We certainly are chatting to Mmusi Maimane, the DA national spokesperson, as well as the caucus leader in Johannesburg. So 2 caps he's got, but the more important cap is that he's part of the DA itself. So we put him in the spotlight. We're going to talk up to 3:30 early and today. If you wish to call in, you certainly can do so. 0891 104207. 0891 104207. What's the one question you'd like to ask the DA's national spokesperson? Well, you have a chance to do just that right after the news at 3.
SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. On SAFM.
Right, so we'll let put in the spotlight Mmusi Maimane. We started early, so if you've missed the first few minutes, my apologies. Just slightly different things today, because we're going to chat to Mmusi Maimane up to 3:30. Then we'll have 2 segments of Radio Vuka from 3:30 onwards. You can call in. Janus, I'll get to you in just a second. 0891 104207. 0891 104207. What indeed is the one question you'd like to ask the new DA national spokesperson? Lots, I'm sure, I certainly have to ask. And I see Helen Zille, by the way, has tweeted. We'll get to her comments in a second. Let's get to the calls. Janus, you may want to put the headphones on. Mmusi. Janus in Cape Town. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon, Mmusi.
Good afternoon.
We live in quite interesting time, political time. I suspect that we're going to have a quite big division among the ANC. I think they're going to be divided into 3 powerful, sort of not a party but person, like Mr. Zuma, Deputy President, Mr. Motlanthe, and Malema, of course. And all this can cause ANC to drop popularity when they were going to fight between themselves. I had such experience in Solidarity in Poland when the internal fighting and not providing what they promised actually dropped the popularity to about nearly 7% today. So if I wonder how the DA will respond to that. All depends how they're going to play the games. It was told that the DA going to win not this election but next one. I think there is a chance for them. If they're going to play cleverly that game, they can make a big statement this time. All depends on the young people, like lady from the DA and also Mmusi. But I would suggest, Mmusi, you mentioned about your qualifications, you finish this and that. We need somebody who can speak to the ordinary people, especially black young people who haven't the qualification, because usually what I heard, that all this big, the English, high English, if somebody can, manage to enter to these ordinary people and talk to them simple language and explain your policy. I also would like to say that if the DA will target young generation, especially young generation, because the problem is that the unemployment, skills development.
Janos, let's move on. Janos, I've got your points. Let's get Mmusi to respond. Thanks so much for that call. Someone said, actually, we have a person who can speak to the youth. His name is Julius Malema, just by the way. 0891 104 207. Masi in Deepsloot, I'll get to your call. I'll tell you what, I'll take a few calls first, Mmusi, then we'll get you to respond. Masi, hi.
Hello?
You're on the air, go for it.
Yes. Yeah, again, you see the weakness of the A, Hello?
Yes, we're listening to you.
Yeah, because why Lindiwe Mazibuko was removed at this first place? What was the point of voting for her if she was going to be removed again? You see, why they didn't appoint that guy at the first place? You see, we see the weaknesses of the A by removing a woman, so we can conclude that the A is a patriarchal organization. They don't want the women at the leadership position.
Okay, you're saying she was removed. Let's get Mmusi to respond. Some say she actually got promoted, but let me not answer that question. Let me bring in Mmusi. Stay on the line. Stay on the line. Stay on the line. Let's get a response. Okay, go for it.
Tababa. I think it's what you're saying is most unfair, because I think Lindiwe, in terms of her role now as parliamentary caucus leader, in some ways shifts her away from the position of spokesperson to a new role, and I think that it's a role fitted for her. She'll grow, she'll develop in terms of where it goes. So at one level, she's going up. And to say that we're a patriarchal party, I think I'm not sure when last any other political party was led by a woman. And the DA is led by Helen Ziller plus Lindiwe at a most senior position. I think.
Let me finish, because I would run out of time here. Okay. You see. What was the point of voting for her, and why now she was removed? And that guy, Masizoli, she was complaining about the silence, the interference with the process. Maybe now he is vindicated. He was right by saying that. Why Lindiwe is to be removed? And I'm so disappointed by the ANC not capitalizing from this weakness of the DA, because this is the greatest weakness that the DA is having, but everything is stripped under carpet. You see, we need transparent. The results we didn't been told about the result of how much Lindiwe has won. You look at the Limpopo, we have been given everything is transparent. Somebody has won, at how much, everything is clear. Now here we are seeing things that are being put under the carpet. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Your airtime is up. I mean, on the air, that is, not in terms of the mobile phone. Thanks for that. Okay, he brings up two interesting points. One, let's go to the second part, the transparency part. Why no? The figures have never been officially released, right, in terms of that actual vote that took place.
Yeah, I think it wasn't the route we were wanting to go necessarily. I think as a party, that was a caucus election. We must understand the confidentiality and the respect to members of a caucus. To compare the two elections, the provincial election in Limpopo that the ANC is undergoing now is a public election, which members broadly of the ANC can vote into. This was a caucus election that consisted of 18 members in terms of
senior members,
and senior members that can split their vote either way. Now, we've got to ensure the integrity of that result, and also make sure that Lindiwe in her own leadership role can enjoy the support of the caucus as a whole. So that's the route we took. If this was perhaps maybe a regional election or a provincial election of that matter, those stats are available for public consumption and people can get a hold of.
And then just respond to that caller once again, who was clearly unhappy at Lindiwe Mazibuko's removal. He effectively felt that she was removed. Right.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think it's a great privilege for Lindiwe to be able to lead the parliamentary caucus. So she wasn't removed. She, in her own self, put herself forward to say she wants to lead. In the same manner as if I one day said, I want to lead the parliamentary caucus, or I want to lead the party as a whole, I want to lead any other thing within the party, I'd put my name forward, and the party structures would then figure out a way, or not figure out a way, the election will take place, and then if that became the case, then I would move on to a different position. It happens within the internal processes of any political party, and this was the route we've taken. And I think for Lindiwe, it's a great step and a great achievement.
Okay, I'm looking at Twitter, and your boss, Helen Ziller, tweeting to me saying, well, he, referring to you, that's Mmusi Maimane, the DA national spokesperson, has a great personal story to tell. His life epitomizes what the new South Africa should be at its best. Okay, so give us your personal story. Where did it all start for you?
I think I went to public education like any other South African child.
In Soweto?
In Dobsonville. And through that whole process, kind of felt a strong conscience to say, how do we make a difference? One of the things that I still, and I'm unapologetic about, is that I sadly missed an opportunity to vote in '94, just of an age issue. And I remember thinking along those lines, at that age, I thought young people in '76 marched for their equality and their freedom. I didn't get an opportunity to express that. What is the best way I can do it going forward? And so my story is about tomorrow. It's about, let's see what we can do. And I got involved with NGOs, and NGOs do a great lot of work. And sometimes I think the job of municipalities is underplayed in communities, because I, as an NGO, can say, we'll adopt a family and provide food for a family for a couple of months. But government can give them social grants. And when that works really well, we can really look after the poorest of the poor, those have been unfortunate.
So your consciousness came from not being able to vote in '94, in effect.
Yeah. And a strong commitment to say, I still believe as South Africans we're clearly in the most unequal society out. And so if we're really going to narrow that gap between the rich and the poor, it's going to take young people like myself to stand up and say, let's do something. So this is in some ways my mind.
How do you feel about critics saying that your appointment is in effect an affirmative action appointment? Never mind what the DA says about AA.
Sure. I think that part of the response to that is to say, give the opportunity to be able to say, I've proven myself in the job. I think we've led a great team in Johannesburg, and we're still making huge strides there. I think over and above that, we believe strongly for a fit-for-purpose job, and so I think well within the DA you'd be unlikely to be able to attract any other person to say, let's put them right at the top for the most unskilled. Also, remember the risk that is associated with this job. You are, as the media, as the public, first meet me before you can understand the depth of what happens. It's quite a huge risk if you do that. So whenever people ask me about affirmative action and all of those issues, I think in this case, the DA has been honest. They've put me forward. They've allowed this conversation to take place. And whereas in other political structures that hardly ever takes place, and you have kind of we saw it even with the May elections here. The mayoral candidates aren't announced. And so what you end up happening is voting for the brand and not the individuals. And I think that robs people of actually being able to interrogate candidates. And if it was a BE issue, or if it was an affirmative action, look towards it, you wouldn't be allowed to interrogate me, because we'd be trying to hide my incompetence.
But keeping that in mind, that the DA's position on affirmative action may be slightly different to how the ANC sees it. The DA clearly is on record as saying, well, it's pretty obvious they need to grow that the constituency, and for that they need not necessarily to carry people, but once they identify black leadership, capable black leadership, they're going to fast track them, and Lindiwe is one of them, and you and the other, and therefore the almost the tongue-in-cheek criticism to say, well, look at these guys, not so much reflecting on your ability, but say, but hold it, the fact that you're black is an issue for the DA. It's something they can carry with pride because it matters to them. It doesn't matter. It matters that you're qualified, obviously, but it matters so much more that you also just happen to be black, because it reflects where the party wants to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been an important one for us as a party. I mean, when you look at 2014, the great news is that I think the DA has become the most diverse party in the country. The other great news is that when we define diversity, we don't talk about it only on the basis of race. Race is a factor of it, but not the only factor. But what's also happening, which is really exciting, is that our constituencies are growing. Constituencies in Soweto, constituencies, so much so now that if you go to a DA elective conference, I went to one in Pretoria quite recently, and when you get there, it's quite a few white faces, if I can use that brave term.
So it's not people having afternoon tea at 4 o'clock speaking sort of tough English type of thing.
Not
very
at all.
different. Okay, let's get to a few calls. I'll take 3-4 calls in one go. We do have the DA national spokesperson Mmusi Maimane in the spotlight. We're going to stop at 3:30 today, so just listen in quicker and get in quicker because of a change. By the way, before I get to the callers, let's just pick out one or two comments. Hello saying, is Mmusi in the right party for ideological reasons? Maybe how is the DA going to redress the past? He also asked her whether you were ever a COPE member. You want to answer those two quickly?
I'll answer them quickly. On the first, there's a strong policy on redress that we've got on the table. One of the subsets of that is the 8% growth project, which I think seeks to say if we grow the economy, we can address imbalance, and there are ways and means of looking at that we actually start to look at how we deal with poverty in its widest sense. The second question is whether I was a COPE member. The short answer is no.
Okay. Were you an ANC member?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? ACDP maybe? But you are a DA member. Let's get to the other callers then. Anonymous caller from Cape Town. Hi. Hello.
Hello,
yes, you're on the air.
I'm listening to the conversation, and I was actually impressed to hear that the gentleman's boss, Helen Zille, is listening to what these people are saying, taken from the previous guy that apparently opposed the lady and is being reprimanded or being disciplined or something like that. So these guys had to say all the right words and following up to what the lady been accused of being a tea lady. I assume the gentleman was a garden boy or what?
Okay. Are you okay being called a garden boy if somebody does that rather cynically?
I'm no.
No, it's gone. No, that call's gone. Yeah.
No, but I think I'm certainly not okay with being called that because it speaks to so much of our old stereotypical points of view. I'm not at all.
But then using it, they in fact perpetuate what historically white South Africa did, isn't it?
Certainly.
Okay, let's get to the other callers. Funani in East London, hi.
Hi, Ashraf. I just want to congratulate your guest for the elevation. You know, I come from the Black Consciousness movement. You can understand the kind of baggage and history I carry. I used to hate the DA passionately. But I ended up accepting the fact that members of the DA are citizens here. Whatever they want to happen here. Whether their interests and mine are different because we come from different points of view. But the reality is they do not want this country to go to the dogs, if I may use the word. So because of that, I accept that black people can be elevated even in the DA. So for me, as a member of the Black Consciousness movement, it teaches my kids that they can be successful anywhere if they have the capabilities, whether it's in business, in politics, even in the DA. So I think for that, I congratulated Mazibuko as I congratulate Mmusi now. One last thing. You know, one thing I admire about members of the DA, those who are in leadership, the manner in which they articulate the policy of their party is the same. Whether you listen to Mmusi, listen to, Trolip or any of them, I think DA is doing a great job in that regard, in making sure that they understand the same thing, all of them. So in saying that, I'm not interested in their policies, in their politics, that kind of thing, but I think they have the capacity to teach. What we used to do in Azapo, PAC, ANC then, when we used to have Umkhabulo, where we educate our members, we're no longer doing that in these other political parties.
All right, Funani, stay on the line. Then let's get Mmusi to respond to you, right? Stay on the line.
Funani, thanks for the call. And I think one of the things I wanted to say, just as a Black Consciousness member, is that foundational to Black Consciousness is the idea that as Black people we need to espouse greatness in who we are, that we first of all lead. And I think what we've come to accept and come to realize is that there's been a tremendous growth as black people. And so to the previous caller who says now we're tea girls and garden boys, I think is contrary to what paper an author like Steve Biko stood for. And for me, I can stand here today and say I can lead as a black South African, I can lead because members such as Steve Biko paid the price to allow me to be here. So thank you for the call and thank you for the congratulations. I just wanted to put that comment forward.
Okay, thanks for that, Funani. Right, I'll take maybe one more call, probably the last call I'm going to take, because we'll spend the next 8 minutes then just chatting one-on-one to Mmusi Maimane. That's Billy in Cape Town. Hi, Billy.
Ashraf, Billy.
Yes, Billy.
First of all, I will say that the DA, nobody can wish them away. They are here to stay. Other parties have your kids parties, soccer parties. Anyway, this is my comment, and I would like your guest to unpack this for me. I'm going to put into a basket a few things that are relevant in this country. Unemployment, crime, corruption, justice, which seems to favor those who've got the financial muscle, education, literacy, HIV, blah, 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 blah. Now, looking into his crystal ball at 2019, assuming the day has won, 20 years time from then, 2040, where does he see this country? I'm talking about those things that are just put in the basket, including 30% of our population being on social grants. Looking at this crystal ball in 2040, where does he see this country? Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Billy. Right, we'll get a response right after this. In the spotlight, Mmusi, your response to that caller?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of ills emerge out of inequality. We have to consciously work at making sure we do that. And the best way we do that is actually to think of ourselves from the perspective of, I can't be put in the same basket as Cyril Ramaphosa's child cannot be put in the same basket as a child who's growing up with abject poverty. We must begin to create...
Even if they're both black,
Even
for
if
example.
they're both black.
Yeah.
We must begin to speak to policy that favors the poor. First and foremost. I think, so if you ask me where I'd like to see South Africa go in 2040, one is we have to liberate ourselves from apartheid, truly not from its own rhetoric where we say we're free, but actually consciously put some things that strategically allow us to move away from that. We have a weak education system that doesn't allow us to address that, so we need to deal with that quite strongly. When it comes to our issue of healthcare, we have to make sure that we begin to put policy in place that begins to give the most affordable healthcare to most people. One of the challenges that we face in this country is obviously the skills that are exiting out of our country create a serious challenge. So in the public healthcare sector, you end up with a lot of wastage and people not being able to get this. We have to be able to correct it. We have to create an economy that is efficient and a governance that is efficient. And then ultimately, true to policy, we want to make sure government is less and less, because the bigger your state becomes means you're held hostage by it. And so you end up in a state where you are feeding your own self. So in answer to the question about, so if we can do a state that is efficient rather than big, and make sure that most of the resources are spent in the right areas that address poverty, that we grow the economy to an extent that if we keep it at 8% an annum, which is what we're proposing, we can then begin to address poverty in the long run, and then ultimately create the education system that can give us the skills to put forward towards
Okay.
it.
Lots more about the DA, but we won't talk about it today. Let's get into 2012, and we certainly will chat to you about those issues. Let's talk about, however, the DA's stance, and I think I'm quoting Helen Zille clearly, that once they've identified long-term leadership, they put them in that position of being the spokesperson. I mean, she's come through it. Same with Lindiwe Mazibuko and yourself now. So in effect, what we're doing is I'm looking at a future leader, and I mean probably top 3 of the DA, if I follow their policy. You're comfortable with that?
Potentially, but once again, I must accept the role in the sense of today I'm the national spokesperson. What happens tomorrow really remains in the power of the members of the DA in terms of how we do and how we go forward and where they'd like to see me. History goes that way, but history can change and can be rewritten. So I'm very open to what happens in the future. So that would be my take on the issue as I sit here today.
And of course, depends on what you do. Let's talk about some quick answers on these issues here. What do you think of the latest shower song? And Malema, well, I'm showing you my hand is above my head.
I think it's a very unfortunate case that we have the head of state being referred to in that manner. I think as a black South African, firstly, I've got to respect the president just for being older than me. And so I think it's a bit unfortunate that we have to refer to...
So you can differ?
Yeah, I think I hold a different view on that. There's ways of approaching debate once again, without it being about personality and referring to that. It's most unfortunate that the president, or back then, the president took a view of the shower comments that he made. I felt that was a bit unfortunate, but we need a difference, I think.
Okay, who is your hero growing up?
I had a few. One of my favorite people is Miriam Makeba. I think that she resembles an incredible. But my greatest hero of all time was a Catholic nun, Sister Christina, who passed away quite recently. But she was a nun who, because I went to a Catholic primary school in Soweto, really spent my time. And to tell you a funny story, she once wrote on my testimonial that Mmusi Maimane has a critical mind. And at that point, I didn't know what the word critical meant. And so I really thought she meant I was going into hospital.
You were doing things wrong, maybe. Yeah.
so she is my absolute hero.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. Who's your hero now?
Currently, I've got a few. I think there's some great leaders. I think one of my certainly people who have inspired many, and I'm one of them, is someone like Barack Obama. I think he stood up and he's had to work hard in terms of his own leadership journey. I think there's quite a number of other people. I think Helen is an incredible individual in terms of the principles and just leadership in its courageous sense. So those would be some of the few.
If you have an autobiography, maybe early days, what would you title it?
Written on Sand.
Written on Sand. Why? Because
I think I firstly want to make a mark on history, but I want to understand that history will rewrite itself. And so as you write something, you must understand that generations that come after you will have the right to rewrite what you have.
So there will be new histories every single day.
You know?
Okay, what's the one thing you'd like to get off your chest?
That I don't hate Julius Malema for what is all said. I have respect for his position on certain issues, but at the same time, no, I don't really have much else.
Who's the South African that you have not yet met that you'd absolutely love to take out to lunch?
Two people. I'd love to meet Nelson Mandela, but I think I'd love to shake his hand. But I really would like to have lunch with Thabo Mbeki.
And what would you tell both of them when you go to heaven? Look for the DA party and join them, because that's contrary to what they already say, isn't it?
I mean, I think from both ends. I think Mandela had a vision for our country, which I think I want to find out from him what he thinks of it today. I think from Thabo Mbeki's point of view, I'd like to understand the African agenda, because I think it's a fundamental part of what we need to do economically. And so I'd love to have a conversation.
Some may say if you're in the right in Sand, you better get to chat to them pretty quickly. Right.
Sure.
Lastly, Kaizer Chiefs or Orlando Pirates? Which one?
I'm a Kosi for life.
Okay, so you've alienated half our listeners. They're very upset with you.
I'm sorry. Although I like Pirates, my father is a Buccaneer.
Okay, that's the way it goes. I'll tell you what, we could chat lots more. We can't do it now. We'll do that again next year. Thanks for allowing us, Mmusi Maimane, to put you in the spotlight.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
have
so
a
much
great
for
Christmas,
having me.
New Year, and we look forward to chatting to you lots more in 2012 indeed.
And to all the listeners out there, have a great break, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you for your time.
Okay, there you are. Right, now let's get into the first of two parts of Radio VUCA.